I'm Richard Hunt. I'm a sculptor, and I'm here at the Marshall Fredericks Museum in connection with an exhibition of mine that's opening today. In talking about having a show here, we had to come up with a title, and I just thought, well, here we are, now 13 years into the 2000s, and just sort of to survey some of what I've been about in this period of time seemed an interesting idea. I was born and grew up for the most part in Chicago, Illinois, on the south side of Chicago, Woodlawn, Englewood neighborhoods. And for a time, though, we moved to an area where my mother was from, Galesburg, Illinois. So I had some sort of small Midwestern town experience as well. But it was being in Chicago that gave me the opportunity, to go to the Schoolyard Institute, to their junior school while I was in 7th, 8th grade and through high school, and then actually to go there to college, to the Schoolyard Institute's college. And well, one thing led to another, from being interested in drawing and painting to then, when I was a sophomore in high school, taking a sculpture class and finding that that was the most interesting thing for me, sculpture, working three-dimensionally. In that time it was modeling in clay and plaster. But then as I got into my second year of college, I saw work done directly in metal, and that intrigued me even more, and I determined that that would be what I would do, and have been doing it for the last almost 60 years. I feel I was, lucky when I first started out to, come to the attention of some people who could, by choosing my work, give me a prize or a fellowship, give me a leg up, so to speak, and a certain kind of recognition then that made you appear to other people sort of worth their interest, whether in looking at or purchasing your work or whatever. I don't know that I did anything except what I could do. As a young person, drawing and painting, once I got into sculpture, that was what I wanted to do most. The reward of people being interested and reacting positively to what you do is that you get to do more. Since I've been doing that for 60 years, I think, that's the positive kind of outcome from my interests and endeavors. One thing to say about this particular exhibition is that it's, in a way, a first one that has sort of condensed the time frame. In recent years, I've tended to have exhibitions that had even very early, middle, and recent pieces. And then others that might even be confined to a single theme. And whereas this one is about a certain period, like the beginning of this century, okay. So it, focuses, well, almost half and half, which is a balance I like to strike between the public work I do and the private work that I do. There are works that I just do that are just developed as self-generated without, the idea of interacting with somebody else like I do during the commission, the process of doing a commission sculpture. So those I might just start with some material and a rudimentary idea, and then start to grow it in a spontaneous, improvisatory way. Commissions, I start with a dialogue with whoever's interested in commissioning it, an individual or group, and then develop, sometimes drawing, more often what I call three-dimensional sketches, things in wax or some material that'll render them in the third dimension, so that that it's there to look at in the round. I find that it's easier to develop and visualize something from a three-dimensional model rather than a sketch or a drawing. Both the scale and the kind of composition comes out of developing some sort of dialogue with the space that the piece is going to inhabit, so that in contrast to something that I'm just doing as an experiment, as a studio, like I say, self-directed piece. It's how the parts of the piece relate to one another. But there's the added thing of placing the piece in a space that has something to do with what it's going to look like, how it's going to be viewed. So that, like I say, that makes you determine things like proportions based on whether somebody's going to be looking up at it or looking at it from a distance, and then how it relates to the surrounding, whether it's has enough volume to assert itself in some very active surrounding, where there's either a lot of buildings or a lot of trees or something. So those are all considerations that weigh on some of the artistic choices that I'd make. One of the things about projects I've done is that I have this interest in history, and oftentimes, like the larger scale pieces I do, deal with illuminating, just through their presence, their commission to be something that commemorates something or draws attention to something or something or some person or some area of activity. Okay, so I try to do some historical research that might give me sort of visual things, something you can make, without it being narrative, but that tells the story, something that you can associate with a given place or event, that kind of thing. I've found that useful in developing something that both relates to a specific thing and is also, something you can go beyond with in terms of associating things with it or just appreciating it for its visual interest. A piece like the one across the room from us that I call Nile Journey. Well, that's about, I was thinking about the funerary ships that were made in pharaonic times to accompany the pharaohs in the afterlife, and then also there would be mummified birds and a variety of things. So it's like about a trip down or up the Nile. It's about life and the afterlife, the interface there, and about kind of the history of development in what known as Egypt, and how Sudan and all played a part earlier on, and as a matter of fact, how Nubia was developed more developed at an early stage than Egypt. So all those things are going through my mind when I was making that. It's not like it's specific in a lot of details about things derived from looking at Egyptian artifacts, but it's to me about that, and other people can read that into it or not. But I think in the end, it's a piece that has a sense of movement and a little bit of elegy in it. Well, I hope they see it as honest effort to make something that's coherent and pleasing and aims at being somewhat provocative as well, and certainly something that brings together a lot of interests into something where the interests are shared in a form that that can have multiple associations, both in terms of things that happened over a period of time, historical time, as well as kind of what's happening today. Sort of bringing things out of the past into the present and hopefully the future, and showing how they interact in a way that more often than not, I hope, is congenial, harmonious.